To figure out what was happening in the last question, let's just look at one of those numbers as an example to explore more. How about that first one, 3.1 times 10 to the fourth? We can keep 3.1 as is, but we know that 10 to the fourth can be written differently. This is just 10,000. So 3.1 times 10 to the fourth is equal to 3.1 times 10,000. What do we do now? Well, you may remember that to multiply a number by 10, you add a 0. But in reality, what you're actually doing is moving the decimal point of the number one place to the right when you multiply by 10. And in some cases, this requires the addition of a 0. For example, if we look at the number 31 and we want to multiply it by 10, we need to note that the decimal point is invisible, but it's technically right here. We need to move it from being right after the 1, one place to the right. And since there's nothing here right now, we need to add a 0 in. Then we put a decimal point after that 0. In this case, though, we're dealing with 10 to the fourth power. So what do we do in that situation? Well, for each 10 that's here, this number is going to get 10 times bigger. So the decimal needs to move one step to the right for each of those factors of 10. The first time we move it, we end up with 31. The next time we move it, the decimal point will be out here, and here we have one of those invisible spaces. We know we're going to need to put a 0 there, but let's not derail ourselves at this point. We've already moved over 2 times, so that takes care of 2 of our 4 factors of 10. We need 2 more. There's our third, and there is our fourth. So our decimal point started out right here, and in the end, it's all the way out here to the right. We went from having 3.1 to having 31 to having 310 to 3,100, and finally to 31,000. This is where our decimal point would belong if we decided to write it in. We know it's generally invisible, though, for numbers that don't have decimals written outside of them. To give you a chance to try out what we've been talking about, see if you can write out that number that we had at the end of the last question, 3.1 times 10 to the 21. How would you write this out using our normal number notation, not scientific?